Were you able to get to the homework at all, or try anything? Okay, no problem.
Rain being done. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Oh wait, I don't even have the mic turned on. Maybe I just gonna wait for some more folks to show up on the live stream before starting. Cool. I see a couple folks on the live stream now. See that Chica's joining remotely. Didn't finish your homework, that's okay. If there's anything school taught me, it's that doing homework sucks. So no need to relive that trauma. Let's see. What is this song that? Let's see. We got one person on the stream. Okay, so far I guess it's Chica and Kadam. Let's see. I know Cameron submitted a homework assignment as well, so let me pull that one up. Here, I think. Yes. Okay. Copy link. All right. Okay. Got a couple more folks together. Oh, nice. Nice. All right, we got 3 folks on the stream now. If anyone has finished their homework, or or even just has a work in progress for their homework from last week, feel free to drop it in the Discord, drop it in the chat. Here's a chance to listen to it together, and give some feedback. We'll start in 1 minute. YouTube's got some crazy emojis. Never really looked down here. Did Unicode approve these? All right, there we go. Okay. All right, it's 5 after. Why don't we get started? So welcome everyone to session 3 of EDM 101. Great to be back. Last week we talked about how to take a basic drum beat and extend it out into 32 bars, so we have like the length of a full drop. So now we're getting ever closer to basically having what could be considered a song, or something someone might want to listen to as a piece of music. Maybe you could drop it in a set if you're DJing somewhere. So today we're going to add that final missing element, which is a lead, and that's why I had y'all look up vocal samples from TV shows, movies, etc. If you don't have one that you want to use, I included one in the zip file of samples that I posted in the Discord. It's from an episode of King of the Hill. So if anyone likes that show, you're going to be hearing Bobby Hill a lot today in the example. So maybe watch the episode afterwards. But before we get into the main lesson, let's talk about last week's homework. So last week's homework was to basically take an inspiring song that you like, an EDM song, and try to make a beat that progresses energetically in the same way, or similar to how the inspiration song progresses. So I've got a couple homework submissions, one from Cameron, one from Henry. Again, if anyone else wants to drop one in, now's your chance. But let's start by listening to those. So let's start with Cameron's. go. Great name on the song. Hold on. Something's wrong on our end. Was that coming across as like kind of glitchy and crackly to anyone else? Let me refresh here real quick. Yeah, okay. Sorry, that's a me problem. 1 second. Yeah, hold on. Let me change something up here. I don't even know if this is gonna work. Okay, switch that. Switch that. Okay, let's try again. Hold on, that's still coming through weird. I swear we're gonna encounter every single possible audio driver issue by the end of this class. So hold on, let me disconnect and reconnect my audio interface here real quick. Okay. Studio. All right, let's try again. Sorry, Cameron's music does not sound this bad. It's a driver issue on my part. Hold on, let me try a random song from.
I'm gonna go on a date with her. We go inside Lowe's and we start.
Okay, that seems fine. So let me try this random song. Okay. All right, let me. Yeah, sorry. This is being mad glitchy. Yeah, let me try Firefox. Let me try closing Discord for a second. Okay. And that's still glitching. Hold on, let me try one more thing. Switch this to. I'm just gonna close Ableton for this part. Maybe that'll help. Okay. Disconnect this. Okay. Now turn this back on. Oh, I have an idea. Focus right control panel. Switch this to 192. Maybe the next time I run this class, I'll get a Mac, and then I'll fix everything. Okay, that's better, except I'm not getting audio on the stream. I know that. Oh boy. Okay. Tried this. Okay. All right, I think I got it. Yeah, let me. Oops, I closed Chrome, but I had the stream open. Or no, did I? Okay, you're on the stream too. Okay, I think we're ready to go. Sorry about that, y'all. I'll just remember next time I won't open Ableton until we've done the demo part. So, all right, here we go. All right, very nice. Yes, some things I liked. I love this little intro bit. You know, that sort of like siren-y kind of wobbling bass line coming in gradually, kind of creating that sense of, oh my god, what's going on? Uh, what's coming next? And then bringing in the kick, but kind of like filtered with the high end taken out to kind of start establishing the beat, but not give it all away yet. Leaving some room to grow. Um, I liked in your hi hats, you have the open hat. It's kind of like tick 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 tick. I think that's really nice to have the open hat kind of fill in that space on the the alternating eighth note, like right before the snare comes in. I think that's a really effective use of the hat, and I think in a lot of the examples we've seen so far, we've mostly been making a kind of like we've put in the open hat on like every other eighth note, but you definitely don't have to go that far. You can use it more sparingly, and I like what Cameron, like what you've done here. Really nice job here in this kind of like transitional section where you pulled the kick out. It definitely like created that sense of like, oh, I want the bass or I want the kick to come back. So I'm preparing the listener for the drop, and then nice powerful snare roll going back into the drop. I love those like kind of sound effects you added, especially here near the end. I think those worked really well with your kind of like warning siren-y kind of bass that you had going through. It really helped craft like a clear environmental ambience. I think in my response in my email to you, I said it kind of sounded like something out of Cyberpunk 2077, maybe one of the more chilled out sections, not the like sort of raging, gritty, distorted, driving bass songs that are typically found on the soundtrack, but like definitely maybe a darker underground gritty sort of ambience. So I thought that was really effective. One thing I did call out, I think, in my response to you was you have this like kind of snare roll near the end of your drop, which we covered in class. We'll talk about some ways to make those sound a bit more like natural or less robotic. I liked how you basically doubled the speed as it progressed, so definitely created that sort of snare roll rising kind of effect. But we will explore some ways to take it a step further and make it sound like even, give it even more of a contour and have it sound less robotic, let's say. Interesting little tail section too that you added here. Depending on where you would use this in, I don't know, a video game or a movie or a DJ set, that could work. But in general, I love the kind of like basically the storytelling you're doing here by including all these different but coherent and related effects. So nicely done. Excited to hear what you come up with next. any commentary you'd like to share with us, drop it in the Discord, drop it in the live stream chat. Let me bring Discord back up in case you're trying to say something. Okay. Oh, I see you're typing. Great. Typing. Cameron, while you're typing, I'll pull up Henry's track. Oh, very fun to put together. Double the snares, hi-hats after the kick comes back to give it some more dimension. Yeah, actually, let's just play it back one more time. It's only a minute long. Okay, yeah, I see. I hear that when you say you doubled the snares and the hi-hats, you added another layer on top to make them even bigger. Yeah, I think that was really effective. Another idea you can play around with is doubling the speed of the hi-hats, so making them go to 16th notes. That could also be a nice way to add some more motion. And I like too how you reused that. You had a snare roll here, and then you also reused it here at the end of the second half. I thought that was an effective way to kind of tie the two parts together. Oh yeah, good question from Cheek. Is this ethics? Is this inspired by the ethics question of the trolley problem? Why is my Discord not loading? And just note, Cameron gets a lot of time to discuss his track because he's one of the ones that submitted the homework. So you too could be in Cameron's shoes right now. From when a message is sent and when it shows up on your screen. Oh, example from Sophie. Sophie's choice trolley problem. Nice. So splice. I think you mentioned Splice in your email. Okay, yeah. Oh, nice. Charlie XCX, Cashmere Cat. Maybe I should get some kind of invite code for Splice, and then I can refer you all. But yeah, definitely can be inspiring to go through a sample pack and pick out some nice sounds to get you started. And synth presets too can also be very inspiring. The other homework submission I got was from Henry. I know he's not on the stream right now, but we might as well play his track. Atlas Keys. Is that built into Ableton? Atlas Keys, Ableton. Oh, that's probably the name of the preset. What is that synth? Oh, it's Drift. Nice. Actually, we're gonna talk about another synth later today after we play this other homework submission. So why don't we get into that real quick? So let's see what Henry's got for us today. All right, nice. I'm definitely hearing some of those concepts we discussed in class. Pulling out the kick. I liked to create that sense of anticipation. I like the snare rolls leading into when the kick drum comes back in. I think I heard some kind of like more complicated kick drum fills here and there. And again, we'll talk. I like too how Henry, you made the velocity of the snare roll increase over time to help create like that rising contour. I think that's very effective. And yeah, we'll again talk about more ways to take that idea even further so it sounds like rich and organic. I think another interesting thing to point out here too is how Henry's track is louder than Cameron's. Like immediately the kick drum was like much hotter. And I'd have to see exactly how, Cameron, you exported your track. You might, I'll point out a setting in the export panel that will make sure that your track is normalized, so it's like max volume in case you didn't have that option checked. Yeah, I'm seeing the concepts applied here. So good work, Henry. All right. Let's see. Any final commentary before we move on to the main content for today? I know the stream's on a bit of a lag, but cool. So today we're going to talk about we're gonna like I said, we're gonna incorporate a vocal sample into our track. So now we're getting to the point where we basically have a playable song, or at least a playable drop, and that's really all you need to have some of your music played in a DJ set, or maybe to make a social media video about it. But before we do that, so last week I introduced y'all to that synth called Drift. Cameron here posted a screenshot of a preset that he modified to use in his track. That's awesome. Use all the sounds available to you. But I think we're ready to stop pussyfooting around and use a real synth, a real tool that is used by professionals and advanced hobbyists, and that tool is called Vital. So Vital VST. So I believe this is going to be our first time installing a third-party audio plugin. So this can be a little tricky sometimes, just because people are on different operating systems. But basically what Vital is, it's kind of like a clone of this synth called Serum, which is a very popular paid synth. But the nice thing about Vital is that it is free. You only pay for additional presets. So, and I think you do have to sign up to get it, but it is free. And there's also a website. They're fourth party, other websites that have free presets for Vital as well. And there's a lot of YouTube tutorials that use Vital in their, for their tutorials. So you install this synth and you can get, it'll open you up to a whole new world of sound design possibilities. And we'll use it a little bit today in our demo. So let's spend the first few minutes of class installing Vital. I posted the link in the live stream. I posted it in the Discord. One thing to note is Vital has both a hosted and a standalone option. So for our purposes, we're going to use the hosted option because we want to run Vital inside of Ableton. We don't really have any need to just run it as a standalone application by itself outside of Ableton. I don't even know who runs synths in standalone mode, maybe for live performance settings, but it should be fairly intuitive to install Vital, but getting Ableton to recognize it can be a little tricky. So I'll show you what settings you need to change there, or to test out to make sure you've installed it properly. So I think now I'm safe to open up Vital, open up Ableton. Close this, close that. And also, once you understand how to install Vital, installing other third-party VSTs and audio plugins is the same process. So part of your homework will be to install a couple other VST effects, free ones that are high quality and will open up new sound manipulation possibilities for you. So if anyone's having, everyone start going through the installation process. Y'all are relatively young adults with computer experience, so I think you can follow some installation instructions. But when we get to the part of getting Ableton to recognize Vital, that could be a sticking point. So we'll pause there. Time to open up Ableton. I hope I didn't open up Ableton twice. boy. Okay, I'm gonna hide the preview because this might be might also be slowing me down a little bit. Okay, I heard my Discord go off. Any specific presets we should download now? No, this is just so it comes with some presets, and we're gonna program a couple really simple sounds, but this is for your perusal afterwards. Though I suppose I should at least show you how to install these presets once you've got them. All right, looks like I'm gonna have to reopen live. And how are people doing on the installation? Okay. Good start. Okay. Cameron's good. All right, Chica's got it. All right, hopefully here in a second my Ableton will load and then we can see. Okay, usual culprits. Okay. Honestly, I wonder if this on-screen keyboard might be too much to handle. Okay. All right. So, seeing a few check marks on the Discord. That's great. So now what we want to do is we want to make sure that we can actually open it in Ableton. So depending on where you installed it, it might have already picked it up when you open Ableton. You would look in your plugins section, and then for me, it's here in Vital Audio, and then I have it there. If you're not seeing it in your plugins directory, what you want to do is go to you want to go to Options and Settings, Control Comma, and then there's this section for plugins. So click that, and then it has an option for to set a custom folder. So in my case, I set it to this directory, so it will pick up all the VSTs automatically for me. Whatever folder you installed Vital into, if you're not seeing it show up in your plugins directory, again, open up Settings, go to the plugins section, and then set your custom VST3 folder to, well, probably you want to do one folder up from where you installed Vital directly, so when you install future plugins, it'll get picked up there as well. And then you may need to click the rescan button to get it to detect that you've installed Vital. And if that doesn't work, you may need to close Ableton and reopen it. But once if you've got that done successfully, now you have Vital installed, or you have Vital available to you within Ableton. And because it's a VST, you can create a new MIDI track with Control-Shift-T. Control-Shift-T. There it is. Okay. And then you can click and drag Vital into the new MIDI track that you created. Like that. Okay, I'm gonna close Discord here just because all right. Has everyone been able to get Vital to show up in Ableton and add it to a new MIDI track, and then maybe even play a few notes on it?
On macOS, it installs as an app, so
Okay.
it's not letting you choose the applications folder. Plug into it.
Okay. Wait, turn all these on. Turn on everything. Now try to rescan. All right, see what you picked up in there.
All right,
Yes.
cool. All right.
For my Mac using friends, you may need to make sure there's a few buttons here that say like use VST2 plugin custom folder, use audio use audio unit system folder, use VST plugin system folder. Make sure like everything is checked, just like have it look for every single folder where there could possibly be VSTs, and then it should pick it up. I was just helping Kadam over here debug it. I'd love to. Maybe I'll just use Discord on my phone. All right, I see Chica's got a question. Okay. Yeah, Chica, did you hear that last bit about? Yeah. Okay. Thanks, Kadam.
Also, another question: is there a difference between the VST and VST3 if it shows up in both?
VST3 is like a newer version of the VST interface. I think in theory you want to be using the VST3 version of plugins where you can. I think that they should be more efficient. Okay, yeah, Cameron has the same question. VST3 is a newer version of the interface. And you should prefer using that version of a given plugin when available. Okay. Let's see, can I get the password for here? No, okay. All right, that worked for Chica. Great. I'll have to get the Wi-Fi information later. Cool. So are folks able to now get Vital onto a new MIDI track? Maybe even get some sound out of it? Can I even get some sound out of it? Make sure my audio is working here. Okay, that's working. I'm not getting any audio. Okay, there we go. Are y'all hearing that on the live stream? Sorry, just want to check that real quick. Oh. Sorry, I know I've lost y'all. I know my mic's still going on the live stream, but my desktop audio is not working.
It did come through on the live stream.
It did. Oh.
It's quiet, but it's...
Oh, there we go. Okay. Cool. All right. Now we're ready to learn how to make some techno. Actually, part one. We're gonna make a techno track, and then we're going to show a technique where we basically change up the genre in the middle of our track to make it to give it some more like listener interest and to show a songwriting technique where you can like basically create progression in your song by changing up genres midway through. Okay, so techno, it is typically anywhere between 140 to 160 beats per minute. We're gonna go with 150, and now too we're gonna if you haven't already downloaded those samples that I posted in the Discord, go ahead and get those and open up that folder and import it into Ableton. Remember, you can use this add folder button down here in the bottom of your side panel to add an arbitrary folder of sounds to your project, which I'll demonstrate here. So click here to add the folder. Then I think I unzipped it to this directory. Select that folder. And now I have the samples we're gonna use for the track. So, in one of our previous sessions, I mentioned how important the kick drum is. It's the beating heart of your track. There are entire genres designed around the kick drum sound, like gabber, which is where basically like the kick drum is just this massive pounding sound, and they change up the rhythm constantly, and all the other like swirling ambient kind of sounds are built around that. We're not going to take it quite that far, but I am going to show you how like taking a little bit of care in crafting your kick at the beginning of your track can really set you up for success with the rest of your track and give you a solid foundation to build on. So I'm going to delete this MIDI track for now, but let's start off with an audio track and take this, look in the techno folder in the sample pack I gave y'all, and let's take this kick drum and bring it into our track right here, at the beginning of 17, let's say. We'll zoom in on it. Now, this sample is already pretty beefy and thumpy and so on its own, as you can hear. Sorry, I thought I looped that. Right? But one thing you can do with techno is you can pretty much take any kick drum sample you like, put some distortion on it, and it will make it harder and more characteristic of that like hard driving techno sound. So there's a bazillion distortion plugins out there, but let's get classic one that's built into Ableton is called Saturator. So open up your side panel, Control F, and search for Saturator, and then put it in your effects chain here for that track. Your tracks probably don't have the EQ and the utility based on them, but so now I have the saturator, and saturator's got a few different modes, analog clip, soft sine, etc. These are all basically like shapes that the effect is going to apply to your kick drum sound, or whatever it is that you're saturating. We can just leave ours on analog clip. And then the key knob here is going to be drive. So as you turn this up, it's gonna add more gain to the signal, and which is going to cause it to clip or get flattened out on top. And it's going to introduce these higher frequency harmonics that have this really characteristic sound. So without it, the kick drum sounds like this. Sorry. Oops. Sorry, I'm lagging. Okay, here we go. going on? Sorry, 1 second. I don't know why it keeps getting hung up on that. Okay, let's try again. All right, so without it, it sounds like that. Now we'll give it a little bit of drive, and you'll hear how it sounds kind of more like, there's more high frequencies. It's more kind of square. Or if we really push it hard. Now, that's a bit more aggressive than we really want to go for, I think. So let's dial it back. You know, one way, if you're struggling to decide where to set a dial on an effect, one common technique is to turn it way up and then back it off until you hit that sweet spot that you really like. So for me, let's say, I like it about there. And then one other trick we can do here is we have this dry wet knob, right? So right now it's at 100% wet, which means the effect is at maximum. It's there's no dry signal at all. It's purely the sound after the effect has processed the bass sound that's going through it. But we can dial this back to, you know, let's say 50, and now we're getting a mix of that dry signal and that wet signal. And this is called parallel processing. You hear it a lot. You hear of it a lot when using compression to get kind of like a thicker, louder sound while preserving some of the, you know, original tonal characteristics. So, so in this case, I'm going to put it at about 50%. So I get that the combination of the nice clean kick drum sound and then the like heavily distorted version. And that sounds like this. So again, if I have it at completely dry, it sounds like this. You know, still pretty thumpy, but very clean. If I have it at 100% wet, you know, it sounds really blown out and over the top. And I put it at midnight, 50%, I get a nice combination of both. All right, a little bit of that high and crisp, but I'm not, you know, completely destroying the sound. And one final thing to point out about this, when you clip the signal like this with the saturator, it's going to make the kick drum sound louder. So you may have to compensate a little bit by turning down this output gain. Yeah. So yeah. So now that we've like kind of dialed in our tone a little bit, let's go ahead and right click on the audio track and click freeze and flatten. If you have an older version of Ableton, you may need to freeze it and then click the flatten. And you see how it, you might see now how the shape of the waveform is different, right? Like before, it looked like this, you know, kind of a little bit wavy. And then when I redo it, it's like kind of more solid, less of an up and down. Even the peaks here are a bit like more rounded or flat. Forgot how to make it loop. Okay, Chica, to make it loop, you know, select however much time you want to loop, and then you can press Control L, or you can click this little button up here, this little circle icon. Cool. So one more step to finish, or one more part of the sample manipulation process before we move on to the next step. So if we zoom in, we put our grid on 1/8, we can see that the tail of the kick drum here, it extends a little bit beyond the first eighth note of a beat, right? So we're kind of bleeding into the second eighth note of the beat. And in this case, I want the kick drum to only last for 1/8 note, because I want to leave some space for the bass to come in once we add that. And these 4 on the floor kind of genres like techno or trance, you don't typically need like a super long kick that fills up a lot of space like you might want in, say, dubstep. And we want to keep our sound like clean and well separated, especially between the kick and the bass, because those are competing for a lot of the same frequencies. So we're gonna take our audio sample here and we're just gonna slide it back so it ends right on the end of the 8th note. And then you'll see that it kind of curves down and then it'll just get cut off suddenly. So this is gonna create a click because it's gonna end suddenly. It's gonna zip back down to 0 and it's gonna create like a little click sound at the end. So we're gonna hover over the sample. In the upper right corner, you get this little blue box, and you can grab it and basically fade out the sample. So I'm gonna fade it out right up to the point where the second 16th note of the measure begins. Right? If I put the grid on 1/16, you can see I dragged. Oops, you can see that I dragged the fade out to here. So we'll get a nice, thick, punchy kick drum sound for the first 16th note. It'll start to fade out for the second 16th note, and then there'll be plenty of space for our sub bass to come in for the second half of each beat. And then, of course, you can adjust the curve to taste. Maybe you really want to chop it off quickly. Maybe you want to let it ring out a lot. I'm just leaving it at its default position. And then when we're satisfied, so you can hear what that sounds like. Actually, I'll go ahead and show you what it sounds like before and then after. So before, and then after we do this processing. So you can hear how there's a little bit less tail, but we still get that nice, clean, full, punchy kick drum sound. Then we can go ahead and freeze and flatten this again, just so we have a nice, our finished sample here. And then one more, final step. Let's create a new MIDI track. So Control-Shift-T. And then we can just take the sample. We can just click and drag it here. And make sure you have the MIDI channel selected. And click and drag the sample right into the that space for the instrument. And now we have our fully processed kick drum sample in a simpler. We can reuse it. We can now we can play it like a MIDI instrument. So I can create a 4-on-the-floor pattern here. Remember, C3 is the note that means play this at its original pitch, and then make 4 of those. And now we can even just get rid of the sample, we can get rid of the audio track with the kick. And
can you go back 2 steps and map that to the MIDI again? Yep.
I'll just show what this sounds like, and then I'll back it up. Okay, so rewinding a little bit. I'll delete this. So we have our post-processed audio sample here. I'm creating a new MIDI track. You can see it has the drop instrument here bit, and then I'm going to click and drag the audio clip into that drop instrument here part. And now I can play this kick drum sample like a sampled instrument. I can play it at different pitches if I want. Play it really low. And then again, we'll make a 4-on-the-floor beat here. So, wait, that's not quite 4. Sorry, put it on 4. I'll make this 4 beats, and then set it to 4 quarter notes, and then make sure they're all at max velocity. And then I'll delete my kick drum sample. All right, let me pause there for a second. I know that was a lot of steps. Check the live stream to see if people have questions. I can redo that. That was a little fast. Okay, Adam, you look like you're good. Anyone else need me to play any of that back? I'm checking the Discord. And actually, now that we have our 4 on the floor, let's just go ahead and make that cover 4 measures. All right. So I'm not seeing anyone having any trouble getting to this point. So oh, I see you're typing, Chica. Play back the last part. Okay. Yeah. So. Okay. So we have our audio sample. Now we're going to create a new MIDI track because we want to turn that audio sample into we want to load it into a simpler instrument. That's what it's called. And then that will allow us to trigger it using MIDI notes. So we'll right click over here, insert MIDI track. Now with our MIDI track selected, we can see this drop instrument here, part of the panel down here. When you're clicking and dragging the audio sample, make sure you've got your pointer up at the top so it turns into a hand. Click and drag that into the drop instrument here bit. Should highlight if you're doing it right. And then that will open up a simpler instrument with that audio clip loaded into it. And then if you arm your track for recording with this button over here, oh, I realize I'm a little bit off screen on the projector. You got it. Now I can play it, or I can program a 4 on the floor beat here by selecting a measure's worth of time, pressing Control-Shift-M to create a new MIDI clip. And then I'll change the grid over here to 1/4, so I'm typing in quarter notes. Press the B key to switch to the pencil tool. And then make sure it's on C3. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then I want them all at max velocity because I don't need any dynamics here. I just want to make sure I have the gain up as loud as possible at this step. So Control A to select all the notes, and then click and drag the velocities up. And if I solo this kick MIDI track, now I get a 4 on the floor beat. Again, using our nice thumpy, probably a little overbaked if I'm being honest, but doesn't matter. Let me know if that worked for you, Chico. Get rid of this. And again, now I'm just gonna make this last 4 measure. I'm gonna duplicate this beat 3 times so it lasts 4 measures. While I'm waiting for Chica to report back, now let's go back to Vital now. So if you don't have Vital on a MIDI track yet, go ahead and open up your side panel, search for Vital, and then click and drag it into the panel, the side panel over here with all your tracks, and that should automatically create a new instance of Vital. Okay, so I know this interface might seem overwhelming. We're dealing with Ableton with all its millions of knobs and buttons. Now I'm showing you another tool with all of its knobs and buttons, but we're just going to focus on a few key ones here. So this is a much more powerful synth than Drift that I showed you last week. By default, it uses this sound, which is called a saw wave, which is, you can tell because, or which has this characteristic sawtooth shape. It sounds like this. It's very bright, buzzy. It has all the harmonics in it. If you click this little pencil button here, you can see that it basically has some of every harmonic. So that gives it this nice, rich timbre. But we're not going to use that. It's got, for our purposes here, it actually has way too much high frequency information. We want a sub bass that's that's a lot more subdued. It's darker. It fits more with this grim, austere techno aesthetic that we're going for. So we want to pick a different waveform. So basically, what the synth is doing, it's taking this what's called a waveform, and it's just playing it back really fast. Like if we're playing an A that the orchestra tunes to, it'll play this waveform 440 times per second. So what we want is something with a lot fewer harmonics. So click this init text up here. This will let you choose different waveforms. And genres like dubstep, they're all about these waveform modulation kind of synths. You can get like these crazy sort of growling sounds by sweeping through what's called a wavetable, which is basically a collection of these waveforms arranged in a sequence. But we just want a simple waveform for our purposes here. So go ahead and click factory, and then there's one up here called basic shapes. That's the one we're going to want. And by default, you get this sine wave. And if you recall, last week I mentioned that every sound mathematically can be decomposed into a summation of these sine waves, because this is the simplest possible sound you can have. It sounds like this. For our bass sound, we're going to want to go down a few octaves. If you recall that sub bass chart that I posted in the Discord last week, we're basically going to get into that range. So if you're playing this on your laptop keyboard, maybe hit Z a few times to go down a couple octaves. I think I pressed it 3 times there. If we load it, I'll bring up an EQ here just so y'all can so I can make this more visual. So you can see that the EQ is literally only showing it's only showing energy at one frequency. And that's how we know we're playing a sine wave, right? Because there's no other harmonics in it. You might not even be able to hear this on your headphones, or it'll be very, very quiet. We have some subs here in the physical space, but this is actually going to not be. We've now gone too far in the other direction. We actually don't have enough high harmonics, so it's going to be very hard to even hear this bass a lot of the time. So if we can add a couple more harmonics, we can get it to stand out a bit. Fortunately, Vital has us covered. If you click on the sine wave shape itself here, you drag upwards one, you start shifting through the frames of the wavetable, right? Like it's called basic shapes because you can go through, from a sine to this kind of sine plus sound. You get to a triangle wave, then a saw wave, then a square wave, then a pulse wave, and then a even narrower pulse wave. So you can click and drag through these. The one we want here is this. It's the second one, like right after the sine. It's you can see that there's a little bit more area under the curve here, and that's because we have some additional. Let's see here. This waveform has these 2 additional harmonics compared to our default sine wave, and those are going to make the sound appear more clear, louder, more present in the mix. It actually is literally going to be louder because we're pushing more air, right? We've got more area under this curve. For those of you who've taken calculus, there's basically just more power going through this wave. And if we look at if we look at the square wave, this is like the theoretical maximum amount of, like, this is like the loudest waveform you can have because it maximizes the area under the curve. Even though the saw wave sounds, kind of bright and buzzy, it actually is not as loud, powerful as its evil twin. No, just kidding. The square wave. But anyway, not to get too deep into the physics of it, we're gonna want this. We're gonna want this second sine plus sort of waveform. When I play it, you'll hear that it comes through a little bit more clear. Right, there's that. If I go back to the sine, like, is it even there? Now this more like closer to square sort of sine wave has the loudness and the presence and the punch we need to stand out in the mix just a little bit, and enough for our purposes. So, any questions there? How do you get the search bar on Vital? There's not a, maybe I'm misunderstanding your question. There's not a search bar in Vital, unless you meant by clicking here, you can, oh, that's probably what you meant. Yeah, you can click this, you click on the name above the waveform, and it opens up this little panel here.
What did you do to change the curve in the basic shapes?
This,
Yeah.
like so?
Oh, okay.
Yeah, you can click and drag on the waveform itself. There's also this frame selector here. And a lot of the wave tables, as they're called, they look more continuous than this, right? We're kind of like discretely moving through 7 or 8 different shapes. But for our purposes, we're doing a really simple sound. We just want this sine plus shape. How do you pull up the search bar? Let's see. Is there a reason? Okay, she asks why your EQ shows yours is more squiggly. Maybe you can post a screenshot. Let's see. OG Shop asks, how do you pull up the search bar on Vital for Mac? Kadam, it's
the same.
Same, right?
I clicked on basic shapes.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. OG Shop. All you need to do is click. All right, got it. And by the way, I guess while we're here, I'll mention, you click on this init preset thing, you can also then see all the presets that that Vital comes with. So definitely have a play around with those after class when you're doing your homework, or when you're not doing your homework and you're just messing around with Ableton, because that's also fun and totally valid. And then you can click it again to dismiss. Okay, so we got our sound, we got our basic shape here. But right now it's just like this one steady sound. We want to give it a little bit more shape, so it's a little bit more interesting. So first thing we're going to do, so we have this env1. So that means envelope 1. So what's an envelope? An envelope is basically a shape that that can be used to modulate one or more parameters. So by default, envelope 1 controls the volume of the sound. So we've got a few different knobs here. When I play it, you can see that it like goes up to the top and it just kind of stays up there, right? It stays up there, it goes to the end, it holds here at this last bit, and then it sort of falls off. If you think about a sound, an instrument in real life, like let's say a bass guitar, if you pluck the string, it's not just going to stay the same volume forever. That's physically impossible. That would require an infinite amount of energy. So what we're going to do to give it a little bit, to give it a sense of like, punch and attack at the beginning, is we're going to take this upper right-hand corner node, and we're going to click and drag it, over to, let's say, here. And if you're paying close attention, you might notice that as we drag it down, that sustain knob decreases. And as we drag it left, that decay knob decreases. So then when we drag it, down to the left, so we get this kind of shape, we've both shortened the decay time and we've shortened the sustain level. So basically, when the attack phase completes, right, we spend basically no time at all to get to full volume, and then immediately it starts decaying. In our case, for 0.267 seconds, and then it holds at the sustain level, which in our case is 0.782. So these are parameters you can adjust to taste. But already this is going to start getting us closer to that kind of like plucky, punchy sound that we want. And I know last week when we were talking about bass, we used a sound that was kind of just like, sustained. For this week, we're going to focus more on these kind of like plucky sort of basses, which is a common category of bass sounds before we get into 808s. So before we made the change, we sound like this. And then after, we sound like this. Right now you can hear that it's kind of going dum, dum. It's got a bit of a punch to it. And that's because, it's loud at first and then it quickly comes down in volume. So that'll help the sound kind of come through in the mix. Like it won't just, the listener won't just sort of like write it off as, oh, this is some sustained sound, I know it's going to happen. It's like, no, there's going to be some volume dynamics to it, right? All right. Next. So we've got a little bit of a pluck sound, but this next trick is broadly applicable in sound design. We're gonna get another envelope here. So click on Env2. And you'll see that it starts off with the same sort of shape. We're gonna apply this one to the pitch of our oscillator, as it's called. That's what this, this says OSC1, that stands for oscillator 1. And we're gonna make the pitch of the oscillator start up really high and then come down really fast. And that's gonna help emphasize and accentuate that, that attack, that initial pluck, punch, impact, whatever you wanna call it. And in fact, I'll show you, so the way I'll show you how that also relates to the kick drum sample we're using. So you have envelope 2 selected. What we're going to do is we're going to click and drag envelope 2 onto the parameter we want to modify, which in this case is the pitch of our oscillator. You'll see, by the way, that there's 2 pitches here. This one on the left is the coarse pitch, so it changes it. It can change it, many octaves. The second one is the fine pitch, so it only does it within a single step. We want a good amount of pitch envelope here, so we're going to put it on this first one here. Okay? Now, once we do that, it's going to sound weird. It's going to sound like extremely high pitched. Why is that? Well, it's because we're telling it to, by default, we're telling it to go up 48 half steps, and because of the shape of the envelope, it's just going to stay up there, right? But we don't want that. We're trying to make a bass sound here, so we need it to come down. We need it to come back down to earth, and we need it to come back down all the way, so it comes back to our the main pitch of our sound. Okay. So to do that, we want to grab that little upper right-hand affordance. We're going to drag it all the way down. And again, in this case, we want an even shorter decay, like real short, like this. And that helps create a real like punchy attack. If the decay is longer, you'll start to get more of a lasery sort of sound, which does sound awesome. Not what we want here. So again, we're going to adjust this to taste, but we generally want our decay to be real tight, real short. And now if I show you on the EQ, you'll see that it's starting to get more high frequency information showing up, which makes sense, right? Because we're telling it to go from a high pitched to a low pitch really fast. By the way, you can see those additional harmonics showing up here in the EQ as well. Honestly, this is actually it's going up a bit too high in pitch, right? We want kind of a darker bass sound. So I have envelope 2 selected. I'm gonna, now if I hover over the green pie, I can click and drag downward to decrease the amount of modulation that the envelope is applying. So I can, I can adjust it. I can put it all the way up, get the really intense lasery sound. But we want it at, let's say, 12. So that's going to be 1 octave. Might be hard to slide it to that point. So you can also just right-click on the pie and select Enter Value and then type in 12. And now you'll hear that we still have that plucky pitch envelope sound, but it's a bit darker. And we're not getting quite as much high frequency information. So if you look here in the matrix, by the way, so matrix shows all it's short for modulation matrix. This is all of the parameters that have been mapped to various controls, be they envelopes or LFOs or other sources. And if you're editing a preset and it doesn't quite sound the way you want, you may want to go into the modulation matrix and adjust different parameters here. But you can see that envelope 1 is a default thing, so it doesn't show up here. But we can see the modulation we added with envelope 2 here. It's going to oscillator 1 transpose, and our mount is set to 12. So basically just a more comprehensive view of all the different modulations that you've set up. All right. I know that's a lot of detail. Anyone stuck, confused, disoriented, ready to cry? I promise we'll get into building our track here in a second. That also sounds a lot higher. Is that just a computer speaker thing? Chica asks. So make sure you're playing a really low note on your synth. So I'm playing this note all the way down here. I think this is F0. If you press, if your synth sounds too high and you're playing with your computer, keyboard, you can press Z to go down in octaves. That's actually too low now. Preset. How do I get back to that? If you click on this little hamburger icon up here, you can click Initialize Preset, and then that'll reset everything for you. Did we do anything with envelope 1? Chica asked. Yes. We brought the decay down a bit, and we brought the sustain down a bit. So originally it looked like this, and then we dragged it down so it's kind of in this region. And that envelope 1 applies to the volume of your sound. And so we're creating a volume envelope. So it's maximum volume at the beginning, then it quickly comes down, and that helps create that kind of punchy sound. All right, there's one final thing we're going to do here, and then we're going to start using our sound. So right now, our sound is not velocity sensitive at all. It's you play it quietly, you play it loudly, it's all going to be the same volume. But we're going to want to make some of our hits a little quieter. So go to oscillator 1 and take this level knob and just drag it all the way down to 0. So that's going to make it not make any sound. But once we grab this velocity modulator down here, click and drag that onto the level, And now when we play our sound at the max velocity, it'll be as loud as possible. When we play it at a medium velocity, it'll be a medium amount of loudness, quiet. So now we can introduce some dynamics into our bass sound, which is going to be important. We're going to make this kind of rolling bass line, and we want some of the hits to be quieter to create more of a sense of dynamics. So now once you've done all that, I would recommend saving this preset. So click the little icon up here, the down arrow over the rectangle, and then call it sub 001. I probably already have something called sub 001, so I'm going to call it sub EDM 101 spray 2025. Save it. And now when you want to load it up again, it'll be in your user folder, right? So pressing Z worked. Okay, great. All right. So now we got a nice punchy sub sound. I'll rename this to be sub. So now we're gonna make a really simple rolling bassline pattern. So select the first measure of time. Press Control Shift M. And let's see, the note I'm using is F0. If you recall from our chart last week, F0 is one of those sweet spot notes. It's the last step. Right, so initially when you bring the level all the way down to 0, it's going to be completely quiet. And then you take the velocity modulator and then you drag it onto that level, and then that'll make your synth velocity responsive. And then to save it, just to review that, you're going to click this little icon here, the down arrow over the rectangle, type in a name, and then click save. Just overwrite that. So back to programming our rolling bass sound. We got this MIDI clip here. Got F0. So we're going to make, or that was a G0, F0. We're going to make one eighth note and play it at max velocity. We're going to follow it by a 16th note, also at max velocity, and then one more 16th note. But this time we'll bring it to, maybe 100, let's say. So it's going to be dun da da dun da da dun da da dun da da, but it'll be louder, of course. And then we want to duplicate that 4 times, and then we want to duplicate that whole thing also 4 times. So now we also have to remember to add our sidechain compression, but we're basically going to get this dun da da dun da da dun da da dun da da dun kind of sound, and that'll be like the perfect drum and bass pattern to start building our techno track on top of. Save the preset. What happens is clicking this button up here not doing anything. When you click this button up here next to the name of the sound, so maybe I'll try pulling up Discord again, posting a screenshot. Let's see. When I drag the velocity, it doesn't seem to react to my keyboard anymore. Let's see. Change keyboard velocity, Ableton. You might be playing very quietly. Oh, C and V. Oh, interesting. Okay. So C and V are the keys to raise and lower your velocity. If I So I'm playing this note. If I hit C a bunch of times, it's probably going to get real quiet. Yeah, and if you look down here in the very bottom, it says you are currently playing with velocity 1. Then if I hit V a bunch of times, it'll start increasing the volume. So now I'm playing at 127. All right, any other questions on the live stream right now? Okay. Okay. All right, so let's add the side chaining on our sub. So I'm going to click on the sub channel. Seeing what Chica's saying here in the Discord. Okay, cool. I'll have to remember that C and V trick. All right, so if you remember last week, we added sidechain compression to our sub. So to make our sub get out of the way of a kick. So let's, we're gonna also be sidechaining something else to our sub. So click the sub channel, press Control G to group it. And we're gonna put the compressor on that group so that way we can sidechain other things to it. So grab your compressor, put it in the audio effects lane, right click the triangle icon, turn on the sidechain, select the input from your kick and change it to pre-FX, and then bring the threshold down. And now you should get something that sounds like this. In fact, probably want to bring the threshold down even more. Do some quick mixing. So our sub's pretty loud here, so let's bring it down to like, you know, maybe -10. So we really want the kick is a little bit quiet now, so let's bring it up to maybe. We'll have to mix it a little bit, but, and by the way, I'm pressing tab to switch between the mixing and non-mixing view. Okay. Now let's bring in our vocal sample. So if you have one that you want to use for this example, now's the time to bust it out. If you want to just follow along with the one I provided, it's this one that says King of the Hill, that's my purse.
Give me your purse. Now, give me your purse. Now.
That's my purse. Don't be afraid to shout it. That's my purse! Try it again. That's my purse! I don't know you!
All right, so we're just going to use a little piece of that. So go ahead and click and drag that into your into the timeline view. And the piece that we want is here at the end where he says, that's my purse, I don't know you. So I think that's right around here.
That's my...
Yeah, right there. Okay, so click and drag from the left. We just want to clip out that one piece. So I'm going to drag to here, and we'll click and drag from the other end to isolate just that part. Let's see. Where did the sub come from? The sub was the sound we were programming in Vital just now, I renamed the channel from Vital to Sub. I think it was originally called something like to Vital, and I renamed it to Sub.
Can you show the MIDI pattern again?
Yeah. The MIDI pattern I created is this. I'll just delete it and recreate it. So you get one measure here, or sorry, yeah, one measure, new MIDI clip. I've got a low bass note, in this case F0, down here. Grid's on 1/16, so I'm going to make 1/8 note, and then 2 16th notes. And I'll make the last 16th note a little bit quieter, like 100 or so. And then I'm going to duplicate that 1/8 and 2 16th note pattern that creates this dun da da dun da da dun da da dun da, this kind of galloping effect. And then now that I have a measure of that, I'm going to duplicate it 4 times. And then, yeah, with the side chaining setup, we got this. Very, very dark and austere. Cool. So, Chica, let me know if I explained where the sub came from. That's the MIDI track where the where we had the Vital instrument playing on. Right. So then, so I dragged in the sample from King of the Hill. I've shortened it to start roughly where the where he says that's my purse, and then I've also clipped off the end. All right. So if I just have him, and I can zoom in. So what I want to do is I want to position him saying that's my purse like right at the beginning of the measure. So nothing I did in Vibe will saved as a sound. I think I'm just gonna have to catch up later. Okay, all good. I'll send out the preset. Actually, I might be able to just paste it in, and then you can try loading it. So let's see. Find the sample, find this preset. Open file location. Copy that into the Discord. All right. So if you load that preset into your Vital presets directory, which for me on Windows it installed it in this directory here. You can also probably find it by opening your presets and then right-clicking on some random preset and saying open file location, and then just you can go through that directory and find the one that says user and drag that preset I gave you all into that directory. And then it should show up in your Vital. You may have to close and reopen it. Okay, so we've got this little clip of our sample. We could try making the grid really high resolution. Keep zooming in and sliding the sample over. That's actually pretty good. Another thing you can do is if you hold down the Alt key, if you click the top of the sample and you hold down the Alt key, you can slide it without fixing it to the grid. So you could slide it and get it really close. You zoom in, slide, hold down Alt, get it to start right at the beginning. And then I'm going to trim off the silence here at the beginning, I'm going to put my cursor right at the beginning where it says that. I'm going to press Control E to cut the sample there, and then I can select the excess and delete it. Cool. So second part of the sample manipulation is I want him to say that's my purse for the first measure, and then the second measure is going to say I don't know you, and then it will kind of repeat that pattern. So right now when he says I don't know you here, it's not in the right place.
That's my purse. I don't know you.
I mean, that could maybe work, but for my artistic purposes, I'm gonna cut the sample again here. Control E. Now I can slide this other segment over so it starts, at the beginning of the second measure, and then I'll again zoom in, and then micro adjust it by holding the Alt key, and then Control E to clip and delete it. Now that'll say, "That's my purse. I don't know you." So now we've got kind of like a recurring vocal motif that functions as the main idea, the lead element, the main theme of our track. And from there, we can start building, we can start creating an actual track around that. So together, that sounds like this.
That's my purse. I don't know you. That's my purse. I don't know you. That's my purse.
Right? Now it's starting to sound like an actual remix. Cool. So now I'm going to duplicate this. I'm going to select this and duplicate it. So that's my purse. I don't know you. That's my purse. I don't know you. Now I'm going to, in a previous session, we talked about adding in new elements to create a sense of energetic progression. So let's add in the snare. So again, we'll copy the 4 measures we've already created for both the kick and the sub and the vocal. And by the way, we're going to do some more edits to the vocal as well. I find it, from a workflow perspective, fastest to basically refine in iterative steps. So, I'm putting all this vocal information down. It's all, duplicated, but subsequently I'm going to go in and refine little pieces of it. But because I have, the raw materials to work with, I can move faster and, basically kind of gradually refine and chisel away and assemble the final track. So vocal. So let's grab the snare from our from the sample pack. Go ahead and put that on a new MIDI channel. So go ahead and create a new MIDI track and take that snare sample and drop it into drop instrument here part. And then we'll rename the track to snare. Oops. We'll rename the track to snare. And then take one measure. And we're going to put snare hits on the 2nd and 4th beats. So 2 and 4. Then we'll duplicate that. So now we get this.
That's my purse.
In fact, we probably need to turn the snare up a little bit, it seems. So turn it way up, and then we'll bring down the volume.
That's my purse. I don't know you. That's my purse. I don't know you.
Cool. All right, so then we would proceed to add our hi-hats, or we can add a ride. So let's keep going. Duplicate. We'll duplicate everything. Do another 4 measures. Let's go ahead and add. Let's go ahead and add the hi-hats. So we'll create a new MIDI track. We'll take the hi-hat sample here, and we'll drag that onto our new MIDI track. And here we're just gonna go. We're gonna go right to. We're gonna go right to 16th notes. No need to beat around the bush here. So create a new MIDI track, new MIDI clip. Make sure you've got 16th notes selected here, and we're gonna draw in some 16th notes. Actually, sorry. Let me make a 1 measure long MIDI clip first. drawing some 16th notes. And if you remember from last week, we want a little bit of dynamics here. So we'll make the first hit the loudest. We'll bring down the volume of the second hit. We'll make the third hit a little bit louder, but not quite as loud as the first. And we'll bring down the volume of the last hit again. So we'll get a chicka 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 kind of sound. And then we can duplicate that a few times. And then we'll duplicate the whole clip 4 times. So now we get this kind of sound.
That's my purse! I don't know you! That's my purse! I don't know you!
All right. And finally, we'll add our ride cymbal. We're going to do this in audio because I'm going to show you all that trick where we take the tail end of the ride and put it at the beginning so we get that washy sort of sound right away. So create a new audio track. Let's see, anything, just checking the live stream. Okay, new audio track. Take this ride here, this Nicky Romero ride. We'll zoom in here. We're gonna make this hit on every other 8th note. So click and drag it onto, well, let me set my grid to 8th notes so you can see it more clearly. Drag it onto this 8th note. Shorten it so it only lasts 1 8th note long. And then duplicate it all the way to the end. And then we'll take the last 8th note here, cut it, and we'll move it back to the beginning. Sorry, this is the second half of the last 8th note, so this is 1/16th note. So you do that, you get this kind of sound.
That's my purse! I don't know you! That's my purse!
Okay, not to bore you, because when we get into the details of this, we'll start chopping it up and making it sound more interesting, right? Because you don't want to just hear your lead instrument doing the same thing over and over again. You want to chop it up. But before we get into that, you might notice that it sounds a bit dry, right? Everything is kind of like all the samples. They don't have any dimension or atmosphere to them. Not the vocal, not the drums. So we're gonna fix that using a little bit of reverb. Not urgent. What's the name of the effect we use to boost on the bass sample again?
The kick drum.
The kick drum. Yeah, we put a saturator on here. That's this one. So yeah, saturator is a good general purpose effect for making your basses beefier, adding some grit to things, and potentially giving it like a lo-fi sort of sound. But let's give our drums a little bit more atmosphere first. So to start, let's select all of our drum tracks and hit Control-G to group them. So now we can apply effects that cover all the drums at once. And we'll rename that group to drums. And now the fastest way to add some reverb here is to use what's called a send. So you might see these like little negative infinity signs next to each track. These are the sends, and by default, the one on the left goes to the reverb send, and the one on the right goes to the delay send. And if you press tab, you can see those reverb and delay tracks show up here. You can see, and if you click onto one, you can see, oh, there's a reverb on here by default. On the other one, there's a delay here by default. So if you want all of your sounds to sound like they're in the same space, you typically would put them all through the same reverb effect. So right away, if you just click and drag this little dial here up, you start bringing in a little bit of reverb into your drums. And I'm gonna solo the drums so you can hear it clearly. So you can absolutely drown it in reverb by turning it all the way up. But reverb is one of those effects where you generally if you're using it to add a little touch of ambience, you don't want to push it too hard. So, we can set it at a moderate amount. Maybe something like that. Actually, even that's probably a bit too much. Alternatively, you can go into your side panel here, search for a reverb. There's like a million reverb plugins out there. The one that's built into Ableton is fine. Actually, it has a couple now, depending on which one you get. But you can click and drag it into your effects, and now you can change it up. Change the settings however you want. By default, it's going to be way too wet, right? You don't want your signal to be mostly reverb because your drums need to be punchy and they need to cut through, right? They're the thing that people are dancing to. So in this case, you probably want to set it to maybe like 5 or 10% wetness. If you go with this route, make sure not to send any extra reverb here. That sounds like this. See if I turn it all the way up, it's just all reverb. So that'll help give the drums a bit of ambience. In this case, the bass doesn't really need it. Your vocals, you might want. Your vocals, you also might want a little bit of ambience on as well. So if I use the send here.
That's my purse! That's my purse! That's my purse! I don't know you! That's my purse! I don't know you!
You may want more or less reverb on it. But even with that reverb, we may still want a bit more like background ambience, texture, sound effects, and so on. One thing we can do is we'll grab Vital and we'll add a bit of noise in the background. So let's bring in another instance of Vital. And we're going to put this, create a new MIDI track for it, drag it in there, move Vital out of the way. But we're going to put this one in the subgroup, in the group with the sub. So we want to make sure it also has that side chaining on. And for this, we're going to turn off oscillator 1, and we're going to turn on the noise oscillator. And by default, this is white noise. Sounds like this. It's very, it's just pure randomness. It sounds really bright. This is a good layer to use in a lot of other kind of sounds if you want to brighten them up and make them cut through the mix more. We're gonna want something a bit more like in the background. So you can click white noise here. You get another kind of selector here, and then select factory. And I like pink noise for this kind of application. It sounds a bit more natural, more organic. You can hear how it's warmer. It doesn't have that like high frequency crispness to it. Pink noise, great. And then we'll do a little bit more processing to it for now, but just so y'all hear where we're going with this, let's draw a note here at the beginning. In general, noise doesn't necessarily have a pitch per se. In some sense, changing the pitch of the note that you play will raise and lower the perceived frequency of the noise, but we'll just go with C3. The home pitch, and click and drag that note so it lasts the whole measure. So now you should hear the side chaining kicking in, right?
That's my purse! That's my purse!
That's actually a bit too intense. We're going to want to bring down the volume on that. And here, because we're creating a sort of background texture, we can actually go kind of crazy with the effects. So let's go back into Vital. And Vital has a bunch of built-in effects, right? It's got this effects tab. Really, the sky's the limit here. We can add a chorus. We can add a flanger. We can add a phaser. We can add a reverb. all these things are going to help create this sort of like swirling sort of sound that's going to be in the background. It's going to get out of the way of the kick because of the side chaining we have set up, and then we'll just bring down the volume to taste. But it's going to like help kind of glue everything together and make our whole sound a bit more atmospheric, a bit more ambient. So here's what that sounded. I didn't like change any of the parameters here. This is all like defaults. And actually, I'm gonna duplicate this note so we can hear the whole sample. So let's loop that.
That's my purse. I don't know you. That's my purse. I don't know.
Oops, sorry, I didn't loop it. All right, let's try it again.
That's my purse. I don't know you. That's my purse. I don't know you. That's my purse. I don't know you.
Honestly, we probably have the effects turned up a little bit too high. So you can always, there's this depth knob that's like the dry wet. You can just bring that down a bit. Cool. So now let's talk. I know we only have a few minutes left, but let's talk a little bit more about arranging. So we don't want him to just say, "That's my purse, I don't know you," over and over again. So one kind of rule of thumb I like is you play some kind of pattern or figure 3 times, and then on the 4th time you do something a little different. So here maybe we'll go, "That's my purse, I don't know you. That's my purse, I don't know you. That's my purse, I don't know you. I don't know you. I don't know you." Right? And that'll help create like some extra interest. So 1, 2, 3. So now we have this part where he says, "I don't know you." We're going to delete where he's, sorry, "That's my purse, I don't know you. That's my purse, I don't know you. That's my purse, I don't know you. I don't know you. I don't know you." Yeah. So we'll take that one. We'll delete the 4th time he says, "That's my purse." We'll copy "I don't know you" and put it right there. You can of course take this idea a lot farther, but now you'll at least hear kind of where we're going with this. By the way, I'm gonna go ahead and duplicate my ambience all the way through here. I'm gonna rename this to ambience. Sorry, ambience.
That's my purse. I don't know you. That's my purse.
Sorry.
I don't know you. That's my purse. I don't know you. I don't know you. I don't know you. That's my purse. I don't know you.
Right? All right, so now we're starting to create like a kind of line here. "I don't know you. I don't know you." By the way, this would also be a good time to add in a crash symbol. So I've included one of those here in the sample pack. By the way, I know we're not going to get to the trap part. We'll save that for next time. Because I know probably some of y'all are getting tired of these 4-on-the-floor patterns, but yeah, just take that crash symbol, drag it right to where when the 9th measure starts, when we start bringing in the hi-hats and the rides and stuff. Some other things we can do. "That's my purse, I don't know you. That's my purse." So we can chop up some little fragments of the vocal sample to create a kind of like stutter effect. So "That's my purse, I don't know you. That's my purse, I don't know you." And I'm gonna go, that's my purse, I don't know you. So if we zoom in, we're gonna want 2/16 notes. So we're gonna have to trim. We're gonna have to slide that one back a little bit, and we're gonna take him saying that. I'm gonna copy it twice here, so he goes, "That's my purse," right? So that sounds like this.
That's my purse. I don't know you. That's my purse. I don't know you. I don't know you. I don't know you. That's my purse.
And by the way, you might notice I'm kind of doing this, I added this extra sort of fill here, 4 measures through. And then I added this, this next kind of alteration, 8 measures through. So putting these little changes and turnarounds every 4 or 8 or 16 measures is a good rule of thumb to create a pattern that people can groove to while turning around at a key moment. And in fact, when he does this, I don't know you, that would be a good time for us to use our trick of pulling out the kick drum. We still want the side chaining to come through, so let's go to our kick channel. If you don't already have a utility on the channel, go ahead and put one on. And then just like we did last week, we're gonna automate the gain. Right click there, click show automation. And we're gonna do it for those last 2 measures. Same as before. So now you'll hear the kind of like suspended feeling it creates. So I'll play from here.
I don't know you. That's my purse. I don't know you. I don't know you. I don't know you. That's my purse. I don't know you.
Right. Okay. So we're clearly building the energy here, and we're staying on our main theme. That's my purse. I don't know you. It could also be nice to add a little, an extra drum fill here, or we could also take another snippet of the main sample and put it in there. So, even when we chop up our sample, Ableton still remembers the full extent of it. So, let's see. I'm gonna take one of our clips here. Just gonna copy it and paste it over here so we can edit it. I think there's a part here where she says "try again." Maybe right here.
Try it again.
Yeah, she says "try it again." So if we put that at our turnaround, it'll kind of be thematically related to the song, right? Like we're trying again, we're going back, we're repeating the same pattern. So let's, Control E again to clip the beginning and end so we can isolate just that part. Delete the edges. So now I'm gonna click and drag that. I want to put it kind of like, I don't know you, I don't know you. Maybe I'll put it here or so. I don't know, or maybe not right there. So I only want it to last maybe this long. I'll put it over here. Since we're at time here, so I'm, I would probably carefully edit it a little bit more so it sounds more like a dialogue. But one more thing I'll point out before we wrap. This part's a little bit quieter than the main sample. But if we click into our clip, double click on the top here, we have this gain slider, and we can just slide that up. Don't blow it out. It'll start sounding all distorted. I mean, do if you want to get that sound, but a safe volume is like, where things are close to the top but not yet, maxed out. Actually, we can even, if you put your clips next to each other like this, you can crossfade them using that same affordance that we use to fade out our kick drum clip. So you can click and drag it to the right, and it'll start crossfading. And that way we'll get him saying, "I don't know you," and then she'll say, "Try it again," and it will, everything will be there. So, that sounds like this. Actually, I'll play the whole thing.
That's my purse. I don't know you. 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 I don't know you. I don't know you. Try it again. That's my purse. I don't know you. That's my.
All right, and you get the picture. So. Didn't get quite as far as I was hoping we would today. The tutorial video takes this example pretty far, like basically a complete drop. Next week we're going to cover the basics of music theory, And in doing that, we're gonna, I'll do an example in the genre of trap, so we get more of a hip hop sound and less of a four on the floor kind of sound. But basically, your homework for next week is going to be to create a 32 bar drop using a vocal sample of your choosing. We didn't quite cover everything here, so definitely watch the tutorial I made. It covers a few additional techniques that'll be useful. And next week we'll listen to everyone's submissions and we'll do feedback, and we'll start covering some music theory concepts, so we can introduce some beautiful melodies, some chord progressions, so you can get more of like a pop kind of sound, and less of kind of like brutal driving techno sort of sound, even though I at least enjoy that genre. So any parting thoughts before we adjourn for the day? Sounds like the party's in the next room down the hall. Indeed. We adjourn. Cool. EDM session 3. All right. That's class for today. Thanks everyone for coming, and I'll see y'all next week.